Kyle Smith, and this week I sat down for a morning meeting with former Navy EOD and current certified financial planner Jeff Rotherham. Jeff is from a family of firefighters and been practicing financial planning since retiring from the Navy, so he understands what it takes for people in our line of work to be successful. Hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, hey Jeff, welcome to the bullpen. Thanks for meeting me.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm excited to get you on here. We were connected by a mutual friend of ours, Matt Broom, out there in Georgia. He said that the things that you're doing is in perfect alignment with what we do here at the Firehouse. So I'm just really excited to have you here. So thank you for your time today. Can you, before we really dive into your story and everything else, what's been going on in your life with the whole pandemic and all that?
Well, I'm a certified financial planner here in Coronado, California. And things have been a little bit wild with the markets, kind of these wild swings, ups and downs. So we've been on the phones a lot and talking to a lot of people, trying to keep them, in their seats with their seatbelts buckled and not making any rash moves or emotional moves that would permanently harm their financial situation. And at the same time, trying to support those who need help or are having trouble with their current employment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think everybody sort of went through a phase where they panicked at first, not knowing what to expect with any of this stuff, whether it was related to their personal finance stuff or just their lives in general. And then we sort of hit an area where we got into the rhythm and we figured out how to operate and navigate this weird sort of time. And now I feel like we're in a bit of a holding pattern. So I don't know that the worst is behind us, but at least we all have some slides to go off of.
Yeah, absolutely. Since I've been doing this and helping people out, which has been a while now, I've seen a couple situations where, the market takes a big tumble and everybody always thinks they're prepared. But when it actually comes, you tend to get very emotional. The human brain registers, financial distress similar to physical distress. And so we've had people before where, they're down a substantial amount of money and they just freak out and sell. I've only had it happen twice with two people I know. And sure enough, right about that time, the market turns around and goes up, and they miss out pretty substantially.
Of course, yeah, no, that's the old buy high, sell low thing that we're all trying to avoid. So, well, yeah, like I said, thank you for being here, and hopefully with this whole pandemic thing, we'll settle out and we'll get to the other side of it in one piece. But yeah, you ready to get this thing going?
Absolutely.
Well, cool. So on the fire department, when we give you your first alarm assignment, you get 4 engines and a truck. But here at the Firehouse, I'll ask you 4 questions. You give me 1 piece of advice. That sound good?
That sounds great.
All right, cool. So here we go. All right. So you're first in. When you get first in at a fire, you got to give a size up. So a size up here at the Firehouse is who you are, where you work, and how long you've been doing it.
All right. Well, I'm currently the director of financial planning for a financial planning and asset management firm here in Coronado, California. I've been doing it for several years. This is my second career. My first career, I was in the Navy. Spent 20 years in the Navy, mostly as Navy EOD or explosive ordnance disposal. Specialized in counter-improvised explosive devices and WMDs. Retired in 2016. And then, I fell into this field, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's awesome. Before we get any further, I do thank you for your service. I know that line of work is very dangerous, and we are all in a better place because of the work that you folks do. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for yours as well.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure. Going from the Navy into financial planning or financial services doesn't seem like a natural transition. So what led you that way?
And as the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan kind of got hot and heavy, my field started to receive some pretty robust bonuses, to which I quickly made pretty much every major financial mistake you can possibly make. Married, 3 kids, and, I was in my mid to late 20s, early 30s, and, just really didn't know how to manage money, and didn't make a lot of wise choices, and then had to kind of learn those lessons the hard way. And after doing so, I really embarked upon a journey of learning what works as far as personal financial management and how to best manage your money.
Any mistakes you care to share, or are those something that we're just going to put in the past and move forward?
No, absolutely. I'll be happy to share them. There's a lot. I'll just kind of do some of the big hits. Let's see, I bought way too much house at one point, and ended up having to commute pretty far. And so at one point I realized, it was great having almost a 4,000 square foot house, but I'm spending 10 to 15 hours a week commuting, and I'd really rather see my family and have a 2,000 square foot house. Or I bought a sports car, which was fantastic, loved it. It was a great time. At the same time, my kids were going to a school that wasn't that great, or I didn't feel was that great, and I could, use the extra money and have paid for a private school or moved to an area where there are better public schools and just, drove a run-of-the-mill regular car. It was something that was more in line with my values. I thought I was a day trader extraordinaire at one point, and that went great until it didn't.
Yeah.
And after you get burned doing that, you really start learning what works in investing and how to do it for the long haul. And be careful.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I can tell you are in good company with those mistakes, just with me, and certainly a lot of people in the fire service. So, but that's the point, right? That's the point of the FIREhouse, is to try to learn from others' mistakes, so we're not making the same ones moving forward. Tony Robbins, he has a great quote. He says, "Success leaves clues." And if we can learn from others' mistakes or things that others did that might have led them down the wrong path, then I think we can all be better for it. So, I've long since given up beating myself up for all those mistakes that I made in the past, and recognizing that I can't change it, but I can learn from it and try to do better next time.
Yeah, that's, it's really what inspired me to come in this field is as I started to get more proficient with personal finance and investing. I started helping people, and 10 became 50, became 100, and I figured I could do that when I retired. And it for me, it really blows my hair back, so to speak, when I'm able to help somebody, with their finances and avoid some of those pitfalls that I fell into.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to give back. Part of why I do this is to thank the senior guys that sat me down when I was brand new on the fire department and said, "Hey kid, hey, look out for these traps. Try to invest as much as you can. Don't count on the city or the department to really look after you. You got to look after yourself." And so trying to carry that forward and give that back to the young guys coming up is a huge motivator for me. So I love that. Looking to today and sort of how we're discussing the pandemic, how have current events sort of impacted everything? You sort of touched on having those two clients that sold at the wrong time. How have things now, how is the current state of the economy affecting things?
Well, I think that, with COVID going on, I think that there's a lot of federal and state governments that are hurting a little bit for revenue, or will be hurting for revenue. And I think that kind of plays into being a first responder. In the military, they've recently reduced pensions a little bit. And I think that there's the possibility we could see that in state and municipal governments, where they, possibly have more layoffs, reduce pensions, reduce other benefits, if they're hurting for revenue. So that's something I'm a little bit concerned for those I work with that are in government service or first responders with state and municipal governments.
Yeah, no, we definitely saw that ourselves. Our new folks don't have a pension. They have a 401A system that they're involved in without a lot of support. I've heard so many of them complaining that they called the number to just talk to somebody, and the phone just rings and rings and rings, or it goes to some automated service. And there's a significant amount of frustration there. And rightfully so. So yeah, with COVID hitting and cities like ours really suffering, I could see some further cuts happening. We were thinking we might have been in line for a pay raise. Our department, we haven't had a significant or a measurable pay raise in over a decade. And we were thinking now was finally our time. And then COVID hit. And so it was just another hit to our folks, and something that we've all now had to try to navigate and figure out, well, how do we get to the other side of this? Is there something that stands out to you, Jeff, about what people can do to sort of protect themselves during a time like this, where we're in uncertainty, we may be headed into darker times ahead? What sort of things could people be looking out for?
When these times hit, it's kind of like the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's in my opinion, it's best if you can be prepared prior to this kind of thing hitting. And to compound that, my personal opinion is that the investing and tax environment have never been more complex. I think it's very difficult to save and know how to do that properly, which vehicles to use. If you can be prepared when these times come, it definitely makes it much more smooth. But if they hit you and you're not prepared, I feel that's kind of like a double whammy, and just creates a lot of stress and frustration. Saving, being able to spend less than what you actually earn, having good cash flow where you don't have a ton of money going out to the debt, having your priorities kind of teed up to where you know what's most important to you, and that's where you're pushing your resources towards. Those are all key things that I think are really helpful when we face environments like we are today.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. Those are fundamental, solid tenets of financial planning and just financial literacy, getting yourself on the path towards that financial independence. You just got to do the basics the right way. They say the time to fix your roof is when the sun is shining, not when it's pouring down rain. You got a huge leak in the roof. So yeah, planning ahead, because economies, they move in cycles, right? They go up and down, and I don't have to explain that to you, but this isn't the last downturn we're going to see in our lifetimes, in our careers, certainly. So if nothing else, use this as a period to learn, to educate yourself, and to start building that shelter so that when the next downturn comes, you can protect yourself. But then maybe if you've done it right, you can also look for some opportunities.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, a lot of people have said it, but cash is kind of key, and it's very tempting when you're young, and anytime really, to want to just put all your money into various investments and higher risk endeavors, just because you're looking to get more of a return on that. Now, the challenge with that is when you get rough times, often the economy tends to go down, and so does the value of whatever you put your money in. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys who are getting ready to retire out of the military, but they're up to their eyeballs in debt. They've got no savings, they've got to support a family. And so basically they just got to jump into whatever job they can get as soon as they can possibly get it. And they've got no freedom. They've got no time to really consider other options and take a breath and live the life that's most purposeful to them. And I hate to see that. So I always encourage people to try to have a pretty good stockpile of cash, several months worth of living expenses. That way you can take a breath and you can evaluate your options. And if you are in a spot you don't like, you can take the time to try to change it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Dave Ramsey talks a lot about building an emergency fund, first of $1,000 just for that true emergency, and then building that up to 3 to 6 months. With us in the fire service, maybe same in the military, we have secure employment, meaning it's unlikely that we'll lose our jobs unless we do something crazy or the economy gets much worse and there are layoffs, which is a possibility. But once you've built up that emergency fund, or first build up the emergency fund before you ever start thinking about trying to invest in other things, which I think is just really spot on. And speaking of that, I was on your website, orioncapitalmanagement.com, and I noticed a set of articles that you wrote, some commentary you called the 4 Horsemen. Can you just talk about that a little bit? And I'll share in the show notes your website and point people in the right direction for that.
Yeah, sure. So working with retirees, there's really 4 things you got to watch out for in retirement when it comes to producing a stream of retirement income. I use the acronym LOIS. The L is longevity. People are living very long these days, and oftentimes they don't plan to live a long life. The O is overspending. So if you've got, $1 million and you retire in your early 60s and you're blowing through $100 grand a year, you're not money. Spend that prudently and not too much. The I is inflation, which really hasn't been an issue here lately in the last several years. But if you go back to the 70s, inflation was more than 8% year over year, right? I mean, it was just brutal. And if you're on a fixed pension of any kind, it just brutalized you. And on that note, we often tend to think of markets as just going up, but if you take a look from 2000 through 2009, if you would put $100 in the S&P 500 into the first day of 2000 and came back at the end of 2009, you'd only have $91. And that's not inflation adjusted. And if you take a look for the 70s, it's something similar. So markets don't always have a positive return, for years at a time. For that effect to really work, you need the long term. And then the S is sequence of returns. And so that's what I was just describing. You know, if you retire right on that cliff, let's say it's March of 2000, right before the tech stocks just completely tumble and the market completely tumbles, and you've got 3 years of bad returns, that's extremely rough on your nest egg. You know, so if you were planning on withdrawing, you know, 5% of that or $50,000 a year out of $1 million portfolio, that's quickly going to become 7 or 8% of that portfolio, which is non-sustainable. Generally not sustainable.
Yeah. In your mind, Jeff, do you see inflation being a significant risk with the amount of money the Fed is pumping into the economy, with interest rates already being so low, with employment numbers the way they are? Is inflation a significant risk?
You know, that's a great question. I really thought as we came through 2008 and a lot of the measures we took there with stimulus and pumping money into the market and the quantitative easing, that we would see more inflation. And it really hasn't materialized that much. Everything we're doing now, you know, one would expect that we would see an uptick in inflation. You know, how long is it going to take? I can't really tell you, you know, whether 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. But under these conditions, typically speaking, one could expect to see much higher inflation than what we're seeing right now.
Okay. What and in preparation for that, I recently interviewed one of our guys, and he was talking about how precious metals and gold in particular could be a good hedge against inflation. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So, you know, inflation, people often think it's that, you know, the price of things is going up, and that's not really what it is. It's really just the dollars you're using to purchase something are worth less, right? And so if you have a house or physical items, you know, they tend to go up in value, not because they're appreciating, it's just because the money you're using is worth less. So purchasing companies, stocks, housing, things of that nature tend to do pretty well with inflation when inflation raises its ugly head. You know, cash tends to get absolutely crushed. Bonds tend to get absolutely crushed. You know, so you want to be careful with those. Gold is kind of, you know, gold typically does well, as do other precious metals and commodities. I tend to shy away from that a little bit. You know, gold doesn't actually produce a return, so to speak. It's just it's a commodity. It fluctuates with the market and the abundance that is available.
Is it safe to call it a wealth preserver or sort of a wealth preservation tool, or is it something different?
It could be. I mean, historically, a lot of times it has acted that way. It has, you know, enabled one to do that. If you're, you know, so you can put a portion of your portfolio towards that to help in these kind of times. And generally speaking, it's going to be a diversifier. Over the long term, from my personal preference, I don't choose to use precious metals or gold, but it can be. And for those doomsday preppers out there, you know, who like to go with gold and silver and things of that nature, there's things like junk silver, which is a great one to go with, or seeds, bullets. You know, there's a lot of other things that would be much more helpful if, you know, if things did hit the fan.
Huh. Interesting. Okay, cool. Now looking back, if you could go back and maybe it's not buying such a big house or the fancy car or whatever, looking back, is there something that you would change or do differently that you could offer our folks, again, to not make those same mistakes?
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, when I was younger, I kind of just went off a default that, you know, to be successful, it meant to have a big house, you know, you had a nice car and things of that nature. And I really didn't think about my priorities or what was that important to me until after the fact. You know, and I thought that being successful meant driving a nice car. And then once I got a nice car, I had to get a nicer car. And that was really going to help me with happiness, you know, and come to find out, when you kind of get on that train, you just keep moving the goalpost to happiness over the horizon, right? You know, you get something nice, you want to get something nicer. Okay, this material item is going to make me happy. This will make me happier. But it's really about purpose and meaning once your basic needs are met. You know, from my perspective and what a lot of the research tends to show, I wish I had thought more about that and realized, oh, you know what? I really want to spend more time with my family. I'm gone half the year anyway. So I'll just buy a more modest house somewhere local where I can spend that time. Or, you know, I really want my kids to have a great education, and I want to live in a place where they can go to a much better school, and I'll just have a you know, much simpler, you know, maybe a Honda Civic or something like that. And instead of trying to day trade and be day trader extraordinaire, I'm just going to keep it simple, maximize my time in other venues. And if I had thought about that and known that, that would have been hugely helpful versus, learning everything the hard way. And then after the fact, after making the mistakes, going back and trying to figure out, okay, what is really important to me? That would have probably saved me 10 years if I had thought about that and thought that through prior.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And I feel the same way. And part of what we talk about at the Firehouse is avoiding or preventing lifestyle creep. And it's that exact same thing it's sort of a version of keeping up with the Joneses. And, you see your buddy down the street, he's got this great, in our line of work, it's the big truck, right? It's the big lifted truck. It's the big fancy house. And you see all the guys getting these things and you think, well, shoot, if they can do it, maybe I should do it too. And it's, people don't realize how devastating that can be in the long run. So yeah, I think that's right on the money. Now, you've already given us a ton, but is there one other piece of advice you could give people that are either trying to get on the path towards financial independence, they're trying to learn a little bit more about financial literacy, or just trying to improve themselves in some way?
Yeah, one thing that I think is very helpful is to actually invest in yourself. I talk to a lot of people who, they'll say, all right, I want to get these crazy returns of 30% a year or something like that. And generally speaking, I say, with the market return, you could expect probably 4 to 8% per year. If you're looking to get more than that, then really invest in yourself. Learn a skill or knowledge base that's marketable. Start a business in something you know something about. And that's really going to pay you much better dividends than any type of crazy day trading or anything like that. And if somebody says, it's still not going to work, I just want that 20 or 30%. And I usually say, just, grab your savings, roll down to the nearest casino, head up to the roulette wheel and pick black or red.
Yeah.
And go for it. But invest in yourself, and then also invest in your relationships. There's in my line of work, my previous line of work, the divorce rate was over 90%. And it just being gone a lot and everything. And sometimes we forget to do that. And that's one of the things that'll really hit you as far as on a financial aspect, is if you forget to invest in your relationships, and those can mean something to you.
Wow, that is just outstanding. Investing in yourself, investing in your relationships, and using that as the compounding interest over time, right? That's going to compound over time if you continue to invest in it. I just absolutely love that, Jeff. That is right on the money. Circling back, one last thing before I let you go. The LOIS acronym, I'm just looking at that. And if you added P for procrastination and rearrange the letters there, you could have spoil, and you would spoil your retirement. But
I love it. Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Especially with pensions going away. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got a military pension. I'm sure some of the guys who got on the fire department earlier, pensions are great. They kind of give you a hedge against making financial mistakes, where these days where it's all on you, you really do have to start early, and you really have to pay attention to it. And I think it's tough. I think the investing in the tax environment are really complex. And so guys have got to learn those skills earlier and earlier, because there's really not going to be anything there to help them out if they make those mistakes for a decade or so, like I did.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's perfect. Well, that's a good way to put a bow on this thing. So Jeff, I think with that, you got knocked down on your first alarm.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more about you, or they're trying to find you, where could they find out more about you?
Just head to Orion Capital Management, and management is spelled MGMT.com. We have our LinkedIn, Facebook, everything's there. Emails there. Just jump on. Feel free to contact me about anything. I do a ton of pro bono work, so if anybody just needs certain questions answered, I dedicate 20% of my time to that. I'll be happy to help people, and that's my purpose and meaning, and that's what I love to do. So yeah, if anybody needs anything, tell them to feel free to reach out.
Oh, that's amazing. And you said the magic words there, the pro bono. That's like catnip for firefighters. So 20% is what I heard, and we'll go with that. Well, right on. Hey, Jeff, I really do appreciate your time today. I appreciate your service to this great country of ours, and the work that you've done with the military folks since you've been out, and hopefully providing that service to some of our people. So yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle.
Wow. All right, thanks again to Jeff for meeting me here in the bullpen. As a son of a retired firefighter and a retired Navy EOD tech himself, he understands the importance of presenting a high level of integrity and service. His advice about investing in yourself just couldn't be more spot on. If you'd like to learn more about Jeff, you can find him at orioncapitalmanagement.com. That's orioncapitalmgmt.com. If you'd like to learn more about us, we're on Facebook at The Firehouse. That's f.i.r.e.house. On Instagram, the _fire_house. On LinkedIn, The Firehouse Investors, or any place you listen to podcasts. If you learned something today and you'd like to see more, please like, share, and subscribe. But no matter what you do, take this information, go out there, and get some. Station F.